feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck. Alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Bogota, Matt.
Yeah.
Bogota.
Thank you. Yes, today we are reviewing Simon Kinberg's The 355 or The 355. I don't know how it's
I think it's the
pronounced.
355.
Starring Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Diane Kruger, Lupita Nyong'o, Édgar Ramírez, Sebastian Stan, Bingbing, and more. Eric, it's
Matt,
February, but
sure
it
is.
certainly feels like January.
I mean,
So-
technically the 355 is a January movie.
Yeah, we just weren't able to review it until now. Well, we could have, but because theaters were closed here in Ontario, they just reopened as of January 31st. So you can now go see the 355 if you want to.
And we saw this back in December, so our recollection isn't probably as strong as it would have been coming out of the movie. But for a spy thriller that is very much advocating for the female driven genre within sort of the world of espionage, it's one of the most forgettable movies I think I've seen in recent memory, being that I can't remember much of it other than one line of text that was a subtitle that was hilariously placed in kind of like this establishing shot, and the line is, "He's got a pulse."
Yeah.
I can't stop.
There's some
I can't stop
unintentionally
laughing
funny
at that.
moments for sure.
But there's also some stuff that's weirdly like kind of offensive, and like there's this, we'll get into the plot in a second, but like this is the stuff that like I actually remembered. And I know you went to the bathroom during the first time it's mentioned, but when they call back to it in the end sequence, and I'm not going to give anything away, but it is referencing an ancient Chinese herb, and the way that Chastain's character references it in the final sequence, it's like, ooh, that's like culturally insensitive in a weird way. And but essentially what you have here is a spy thriller that only works, and I say this, only works if you've never seen a spy movie ever.
Yeah.
Like you've never seen a Bond movie, you've never seen a Bourne film, you've never seen Mission Impossible, you've never seen the movie Spy, you've never seen
Kingsman.
Spy Hard, you've never, nothing, any of them. That's the only way that this film works, is if you're going into the genre completely fresh.
Yeah, because it does take from a lot of those movies and more, and
It's
just
so
the genre
derivative.
and just the genre in general, where it kind of just feels like a greatest hits without being the greatest part. Just a hits, not even.
Well, it's not even the hits,
but like a hit is in like a literal physical hit, but maybe not like a it's a the hits of the best parts. But like it's shockingly whatever. And I think that's
embarrassing too, because you have an incredible cast.
Yeah.
These are some of the best actors working right now.
Yeah.
A lot of them are Oscar winners or Oscar nominees. And it's like, these actors deserve so much better. And I think where it comes down to the main problem with this is the script, which is co-written by Simon Kinberg and Teresa Rebeck. And the script is just so generic and paint by numbers when it comes to sort of, the kind of quintessential spy movie where you're globetrotting from one international location to another. The idea is that you have, or this film specifically, the MacGuffin is this hard drive that basically could start World War III, and it's a doomsday device, and it gets if it falls in the wrong hands, and those wrong hands could even be the Americans. So it's almost like a game of hot potato, who has this hard drive and who it keeps going to. And so you have Jessica Chastain's CIA agent, who's kind of the focal point of this movie, sort of, being assigned with her colleague and lackluster love interest, who's also an agent played by Sebastian Stan, to go to Paris, France, and find this thing and infiltrate this this other this I can't remember the name of the group, but Edgar Ramirez's that would be better if it was Edgar Wright. Edgar Ramirez's Colombian agent, and with that comes this really
He's a
weird,
DNI agent.
yeah, this weird kind of contrived aspect of him needing a psychologist who's played by Penelope Cruz, and her character really has no training in the field whatsoever and is kind of supposed to be an audience surrogate for you, that when, like, these other agents team up, you kind of are seeing it from the point of view of this character who's maybe learning as she goes along. And anyways, they're supposed to get this hard drive, and things go awry, and again, it kind of goes from one person to the next, and they're going to places like Marrakesh and Shanghai and trying to get it back, and all the places that they're going are places that have been used iconically in other spy movies as well. Like,
and that's
a lot
probably
of these,
why they're featured, but it's not done in an interesting way.
no,
at
and a
all.
lot of the establishing shots, when they have like the text come up saying like Marrakesh or Shanghai or Paris or London, like like you could look at that and like take a freeze frame of it and show it to somebody and say, what spy movie is this from? And you wouldn't be able to get it, because like it could be from any movie.
Yeah,
Like, there's
and that goes to
nothing
the
distinct
action
about
too.
this.
Like, even in all of the action, which is completely uninspired, and I remember it just being so incredibly forgettable and almost nauseating at times, and like with the quick cutting and shaky cam, and if I'm getting it correctly, again, it's been a little bit of
No,
of
you're right,
time, but
because
like,
it's trying to cover up the poor action
yes,
choreography.
that's exactly, now you're triggering it
We
again.
talked
Like,
a lot
yeah,
about this as well with Red Notice, where you
yeah,
could see that like any of the fight scenes weren't really well choreographed with the actors, or the actors were, scheduling wise, maybe we're working on something else
it
and
would
they
never
didn't have
let
that
it
much time to
breathe, right?
rehearse. Yeah, and so you're it's like that Bourne kind of style of editing where like
But
every three
even more kind
seconds.
of sporadic, because you have to kind of hide a lot of it. And I
Yeah.
think that's what was so frustrating, is like it's a lot of that samey kind of guns are shooting, very pop up from cover, shoot some bullets, explode some stuff, and then when you get the hand-to-hand combat, they kind of have to hide the actresses, and kind of, again, and I compared it to Kingsman just because it came out. Again, Kingsman, not a great movie. The Kingsman. I enjoyed it. You guys can check out our review. But I remember watching that movie and just being like, at least it was trying to do something different or creative or zany or wacky with the spy genre, which is what those Kingsman movies have done. And then the action sequences were fun, where, like, again, there was nothing, if they're not going to be fun, they need to be intense, and if like, or just kind of enjoyable to watch, and nothing in this was. And getting a spy movie like the Kingsman, which was a prequel in a different era, and showcasing the origins of a spy agency, like, I really, seeing those movies back to back just made me go, oh man, this movie, the 355 or the 355, weren't like, did absolutely nothing for me. Like, again, it is just one of those kind of, the cast is great, but you're kind of frustrated because they are great, but they're not really given that much to do.
Other than
It's
exposition, which, like, Lupita Nyong'o, who's a retired MI6 agent who's kind of brought back into the field by Jessica Chastain's character, is another one of those, is sort of, your foot in the door when it comes to the tech stuff, but also is kind of that cliched character of, having left the field because of a former kind of
yeah,
mission or case going
gone wrong.
wrong,
Yeah.
and dealing with trauma. And so with that, like, it's just so cliched, and you never kind of get any insight or interest into the characters, or even the social commentary of sort of the patriarchy and how
Yeah.
it treats women. I mean, like, the films like Paul Feig's Spy, which is part spoof, I think has more to say. Or even Ocean's 8, which the Shanghai sequence kind of is very similar to
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
the Met Gala sequence in Ocean's 8. But even though Ocean's 8 isn't a great film, it does have this one little moment of really like powerful insight when Sandra Bullock is talking to Cate Blanchett's character about how, you know, the best thing, one of the things that, you know, women have going for them in the spy world is that, you know, they're invisible to begin with, that, you
Yeah.
know, they're not seen. And it also weirdly reminded me of like in Men in Black, which is also a very is a better movie than the 355. But in terms of like a popcorn movie, there's a line that Tommy Lee Jones has about saying like, you know, a person is smart, it's people that are dumb, that when you put people together, that's when you lose kind of the individual and sort of the rationality of things. And I always love that kind of like sort of interjection of intelligence in, you know, a big blockbuster popcorn movie, even if it's just like one little moment. The 355 is trying to be that through the entire thing, and it fails miserably as a social commentary,
Yeah.
as an accessible spy film, as an acting
As a
piece.
fun
Or
popcorn movie.
Diane Kruger, I think, is the best in terms of like being completely both physically and emotionally committed to the role. And I kind of wish that like she had her own action franchise, because I buy her the most out of
Yeah.
this cast as like, you know, a hardened spy who also has her own backstory of turning in her father, who was a KGB agent. And, you know, like that stuff I think is, again, cliched, but at least there's something there. And like I really think she's a great kind of physical actor. And the rest of the cast, it just, they're so lost. And I was embarrassed for like Penelope Cruz during this auction sequence specifically. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, why is the script so contrived to get her into every
Yeah.
single, you know, travel sequence that they're in? It's like at some point it's like you don't need this character anymore.
Yeah. And you keep using the word cliched, and I think that kind of,
It's the only word I can think of that is like
no, and
best
I don't mean
suited
that as
for
an
it.
insult, but that's the perfect word for this movie, because there's even an unintentionally funny moment where I think I made you laugh because like it's so predictable as
Oh,
well.
that's
Because
the
if
other
you
thing.
like,
If you
if
don't see a character die on screen, they're going to come back.
and
And
it's
that's
just
another
like,
thing that Spy does so well.
and that's what I mean. When it's a satire, I think you can be a better spy movie, and it's funnier and it's just more enjoyable. And it's something it's so self-serious in this, and like takes itself, again, say I'm repeating myself, but it takes itself so seriously that when these moments, and if you've seen any spy movie, you know exactly how this movie is going to play out. But if you're going to do these things, you need to do them in creative ways. And that's when we go back to uninspired or cliche ridden and things like that, because it's just like it's just going from point A to point B to point C to point D. Like it's not doing anything different. So you can literally go, okay, when we get to point Y, I know that's coming. And then it's treated as a big reveal each time it happens. And I remember
Oh,
Fake
yeah.
going, oh my God, what? At
I
like
did
one
not see
point.
that one coming.
Yeah, and then that's kind of the thing where you don't want to be unintentionally going like, come on, guys. Like, even if you're gonna do that, like you need to kind of find an interesting way to do it, or a, you know, a ridiculous way or whatever. But like the way that it's done is so like, oh my God, guys, I could have told you that 45 minutes ago. Why even bother? Like, reintroduce that person earlier, or make it a little bit more interesting, or like, I don't know, the way that it's done. And like you said, it's just like there's tons of those moments where you're like, if you're just watching the movie, I can't fathom how you wouldn't see that coming,
Unless
or
you
things
haven't
like
seen
that,
a
like
spy movie before. And
ever.
that's the only way that this thing works. And then even after that scene that you're mentioning where like, you know, you you added the only levity to the film, there's a moment where
Even the
totally
moment you
it's,
said with the herb is very predictable too.
yeah, but
So,
and again, culturally weirdly
yeah.
insensitive. But like there's a moment that is, I think, a reference to Point Break, where Jessica Chastain's character fires the gun away from her target in kind of rage and and she can't really like bring herself to kind of do it in this moment. And I mean, that movie is fun and exciting and kind of, you know,
Directed by a
deconstructs.
woman.
Exactly. And that's the other thing as well, which
Simon
is
Kinberg.
so fascinating. Jessica Chastain's also a producer on this. Freckle Films is her production company that kind of helped spearhead this thing, and it's been in development for a while now. There was a Cannes Film Festival a few years ago where they were promoting this and sort of, you know, getting the cast and crew together, um, and you could have picked anybody to direct this film, like anyone, and I don't understand why Chastain was like, you know what? I would really
Simon
like to
Kinberg.
work with my X-Men Dark Phoenix director again. You know, the guy who directed me in probably one of the most forgettable superhero movies ever made. So it's just, it's a weird choice. And again, it's not even saying that like a man can't direct
but the guy
a
who wrote
female-driven spy
Fantastic
movie.
Four and XXX State of the Union and, you know, X-Men Apocalypse and directed Dark Phoenix, and like it's just it was a very weird choice.
He's a journeyman director at best, and he's more of probably a jobber if anything else. But like, it's just such a strange pick for a film that has a greater ambition than the director's, you know, track record. You know,
I'm not saying
again,
that he couldn't have done it, but like,
no,
obviously
but
it's
Jessica
proven.
Chastain seems to be a very conscientious person when it comes to who she works with on projects and who fits best for a film. And I don't understand really what the reasoning was to go with Kinberg. I really don't.
Yeah,
I think
don't
that
either.
It's just a very generic action movie that is both incoherent at times in terms of how the action is directed, but even just its insights are completely lacking, even though it thinks it's saying something intelligent.
I agree. I'm gonna give it a 1. I really don't think like I don't know. Yeah, a 1.
I'll just give it a 2.
Yeah,
I don't think it's even
that's
worthy
your
of a
default,
1.
But that's fair. Yeah,
I think
you're making
a
good
1
point.
has to be like a truly,
it's pretty bad,
memorable,
but like,
but it's not
a memorably bad movie. You're saying?
no, yeah, because I think like a 1 star, it's like, oh, you remember. I always talk about this when I'm writing reviews.
I don't even know what did I give it on Letterboxd.
The 1 star movies and the 5 star films are always the easiest to write. The ones that are the hardest to write are the movies that are like 2 to 3, the middle of the road films. I don't think it's even worthy of a 1 star.
I have to go back to my notes because I did review it. I did give it a 2, so I'm being harsher on it now. You know what? I'll even it in the middle. It's a 1.5 for me. So I agree with you, Eric. Not as bad to be that memorable as a 1. I gave it a 2 originally when I saw it back in December. As we're talking about it now, I'm like, I can't. I will never. I hate being very, very harsh, but like, I will never think of this movie ever again.
Oh, and it didn't have to be 2 hours and 2 minutes. Like, I don't understand why. Maybe it was. I mean, on IMDb it says 2 hours and 2 minutes, but I don't understand why the film is over 2 hours long. I mean, a lot of spy movies are over long to begin with. Like even the most recent Bond movie, which we both liked, I think like in general, you know, you get very convoluted with the script and things get overly complicated.
Again, I'll go back to good movie, bad movie, bad movie. Yeah, 122 minutes, which is 2 hours and 2 minutes. Yeah, you're correct.
Which and it doesn't need to be. Yeah, it does. It truly feels, and it was so cold in that theater too. So.
Oh yeah, you're taking me back, Eric. Yeah, it was freezing. That and West Side Story, both at the Scotiabank, were just absolutely freezing. Okay, thank you everyone for watching or listening. We really, really do appreciate it. We have more reviews we would love for you guys to check out. Right now, we have a review up for Pam and Tommy, also starring Sebastian Stan. We didn't even talk about him in this barely because
memorable.
He's there. He's much better in Pam and Tommy, so go check that out and listen to our review. We both really enjoyed it, but had a great discussion on that series. So you guys should go check that out. Murderville, Yellow Jackets, Peacemaker, Book of Boba Fett. We've talked about a ton of TV shows lately because theaters just opened up. And because they're opening back up, we will have reviews for Scream,
5
Jackass Forever, and more. So those are all over on the Untitled Movie Reviews channel. Over on Untitled Movie Podcast, we have a new episode 113, with Gregory James Miller of Kind of Funny. Game Over Greggy over on Twitter. You guys might know him from there, might know him from his video game background, but I know him very well from Kind of Funny. So he came on the show. We talked about him being a new dad, how much he loves Ghostbusters, and how much he wants his son to love Ghostbusters, whether he's going to show him real Ghostbusters first or Afterlife first. So that was a fun conversation. What he thought of the Eternals, because he wasn't on the Kind of Funny review because he was on pat leave. We talked about video game adaptations and how we think The Last of Us will probably be the first great one, hopefully, knock on wood. So really, really great conversations with Greg. So one of our shorter episodes, it was only like 56 minutes. So very palatable for those who don't want to listen to us for 3 hours. So go check that out. YouTube, podcast services, one-stop shop, Untitled_movies over on Letterboxd. You guys can just check out all the YouTube links, everything over there. That's probably your easiest spot to find everything. As always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews on RogersTV.com/CinemaScene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
He's got a pulse.